Hello and welcome to the online course Building Cost Estimation Simplified. We are going to familiarize ourselves with a new concept today. In today's video, we are going to learn about the general terminologies and abbreviations used in building cost estimation. First, we will look at two important concepts, units of measure called UOM and unit costs. Units of measure or UOM are the units in which building quantities are measured. So if we are measuring the length of a wall, then we measure it in meters. Or if you are going to find the area of a particular portion, we use square meters for it. And if we want to find the volume, we use the unit meter cube. Units of measure are detailed in the IS code 1200. Now let's look at the unit cost. This is the cost of one unit of a particular product or service. We refer to both product or service, which means that it is not just about the building material. We will also be considering the cost of employing a laborer on site or using machinery on site. Even this comes under the unit cost. We can find per unit cost of these items and services, and that can be used to find out the total cost of that particular item or service. This is a basic reference. The unit cost is a basic reference we use to further derive the cost of the item. For example, the unit cost for 1 bag of cement. We know that cement is used in mortar and it could be any ratio like 1:4:6. That could be the ratio. And concrete is one. We can use cement in concrete, and it depends upon the grade of concrete. So if we have a 30 grade concrete, then we would need 300 kg per meter cube of cement in that. So these are some of the examples of how unit cost can be used to find out the total amount, the cost of the total amount of that particular material in that particular building project. Now, cost of a product or service is equal to the total quantity which we can get from the drawings, and then we multiply it with the unit cost. I repeat, cost of a product or service is equal to quantity into unit cost. We move on to the next slide, and in this we will be able to articulate the units of measure better as given in an estimate. We can see the serial number on the first column, in the first column, then the DSR number. This is the schedule of rates number. The reference is taken from that. And then we have a description of the item of work. We are looking at civil work in this example. So on the right side of it, the first column has the units of measure, which is the cubic meters and square meters. And again, we have just taken two units of measure in this example. One is a volume, which is represented by cubic meters, and we have the area, which is represented by square meters. We have additional columns to represent the quantity, the rate and amount. And we will first look at the description. So we see that earthwork in excavation by mechanical means. So we understand it is the earthwork that we are describing here. So earthwork is measured in volume, and so we have cubic meters as unit. Next, we look at the next item. It is extra for every additional lift of 1.5 meters or part thereof in excavation or banking, excavated or stacked materials, all kinds of soil. Again, this has been arrived at in the unit that we use for it is cubic meters. Then we move on to the next item, item number 3. It is the treatment of soil under floors using chemical emulsion. And for that, we use the unit square meter. And we know that the unit square meter represents area. Item number 4 is the supplying and filling in plinth with Gemina sand, local sand. Again, we find that the unit is in volume, and so we have used the unit of measure as cubic meters. In the next one, it is providing and laying in position cement concrete of specified grade. And we see that excluding the cost of centering and shuttering, all work up to plinth level, 1:4:8. This is the ratio of cement is to coarse sand is to graded aggregate of 40 mm nominal size. Again, we see that the unit used is cubic meters. The next we have again a plinth protection. The specification of the cement concrete to be used is given, and this has been measured in area, and so we use the unit square meters. So that's the UOM in this. Now the quantity has been measured from the drawings, and the estimator has already filled the quantity in it. Now the unit rate is what we have here. So this is a per unit rate for each item that is mentioned in the third column. And then we have these rates put in the column for rates. And then what we do is we multiply the quantity into rate to find the final amount. So that is the description of how we use the units of measure and rate in an estimate. Now we'll go more elaborate on units of measure. We have some of the units of measure that we commonly use in our building projects. Some of them are in metric system, some are in imperial system. We know that meter is a unit that we use to denote length, and kilometer is also to denote length. EA is each. This is when we have to show a product, or for example, if we want to show as say chairs in an interior project, number of chairs. So the per unit would be for each chair. So that is sometimes represented as EA. Then we have linear feet, pound. That is, it's not commonly used in our Indian measurement system. We have square ton, ton, metric ton. Usually steel is weighed in metric ton. Quintal, steel is also weighed in quintal. Then MO is month, and this is usually used for project duration, etc. CF is the cubic feet. Again, we use it for volume. RM is running meters. Running meters is used for certain cases where we have when we are using projections of chajjas, those are measured in running meters. Or if we are having some interior work, some plaster bands, for example, those are measured in running meters. The next we have week. Again, that is to represent the project duration. Yard, and then we have the hour. Hour is to denote the time. Square meters, cubic meters, millimeters, square kilometers for area, hectare for area, metric ton, 1000 kgs, and degree Celsius and liter. We move on to the next slide. In this, we will be learning about the concepts of lump sum item, lump sum contract, and unit contract. We'll first look at lump sum item. You might have seen lump sum written in certain items of an estimate or in a bill of quantity. And this is usually for small items for which detailed quantity cannot be taken out easily, or it takes sufficient time to find detail. Example, site planing and dressing. So in these items, we only use the term lump sum to represent them. Now, lump sum contract, it's a fixed sum contract where quantities or schedule of different items of work are not provided. The contractor has to complete as per plan and specifications. The unit rate contract. The contractor bases bid on the quantities estimated. Payments are made based on the price that the contractor bids for each unit of work and field measurements of work actually completed. When we compare lump sum contract with unit rate contract, there is a difference. In lump sum contract, the contractor and the client agree on a fixed amount mutually agreed upon, and the scope of work and the materials to be used is made clear to the contractor at the time of signing the contract. Now, if the scope of work in the process of constructing the project exceeds what was originally agreed upon, or some rework has to be done due to change in design, then that item will be considered as variation, and the contractor is paid extra on a mutually agreed basis. And that's how we do the lump sum contract. One important aspect to keep in mind in lump sum contract is that either the detailed drawing or the detailed BOQ, the bill of quantities, is to be given to the contractor. This is very crucial. And whatever is deviation from this is counted as variance, as we mentioned. Now, when we take unit rate contract, we have another name for it. It is also called a remeasurable contract, which means that what is actually built by the contractor can be measured. So remeasurable is when we have the provision of finding out what is actually built. So the benefit of this contract is that the contractor is paid for the work actually executed as per the contract terms. Now, this contract agreement, the unit rate contract, is of low risk for both client and the contractor. Any new item added during the project execution, which is not listed in the contractual BOQ, is considered as a variation, and the contractor is paid for the actual that has been constructed. So we have an idea of what is a lump sum contract and what is a unit rate contract. Now we will look at two other concepts, which are the bill of quantities and the abstract of estimated cost. Let's first look at bill of quantities. It's a spreadsheet document used in tendering in construction industry, in which material and their costs are itemized. It itemizes all work to enable a contractor to quote for the work. Suppose we have a huge building project. And we invite bids, we invite contractors to bid for the project, and then we have a tender. And so what we do is we provide a bill of quantities along with the documents we supply to them. And in this bill of quantities, we have the item and the specification as to what is the specification of the material or the work that is to be done. That is also mentioned. Then we have the column for units of measure, and then we have the quantity of that particular item that has to be used. So we itemize the huge work into different parts as per the material or the service that has to be done. Now, the rate column is usually left blank. We only provide the quantity to the contractors who are bidding, and they can fill in their rates and then come up with the total amount. And this becomes a bid from the contractor. So it is an Excel sheet, and this is provided during the tendering process. Now, we'll check as to what an abstract of estimated cost is. It's AOE. A tabular form in spreadsheet, again like a bill of quantities, and it shows the quantities and costs of each item. And then categories like profit, overhead, charges, etc. are added to it. The grand total gives the estimated cost of work. Now, the abstract of estimated cost is that part of the estimate where the actual costs are there, direct costs which we have to incur in terms of material, labor, in terms of equipment, etc. The cost of this is there in the abstract of estimated cost. But this still doesn't make the complete estimate, because we have to add other factors like profit, overhead charges, etc. to this to make it a complete estimate. The grand total of all this, the abstract of estimated cost and the other charges, together it becomes the estimate of the particular project. Now the difference would be in both of these would be that in the abstract of estimated cost, we also add the rates, and this is a part of the estimate, as in it gives a value, it gives a cost value. So in this we have the abstract of estimated cost and the bill of quantities example. You see that we have left the rate and amount blank. So bill of quantities is just about the quantities, and abstract of estimated cost, the cost of that of the hard cost of the project is calculated in the abstract of estimated cost. Now we look at the two other concepts which are very relevant for estimators. One is the specification and one is the working drawing. Both specification and working drawings are of utmost importance to an estimator. An estimator is to be able to read the specifications and also read from the working drawings to be able to find out the complete measure of what we are going to build, and also about what is the quality and the grade and other specifications, the make of a particular product. These are information that we can get from specifications. So it is very important for an estimator to be able to go through specifications and working drawings thoroughly. We will look at what specifications are. Specifications are written set of requirements defining the quality of material, the performance rating of an equipment, the quality of workmanship, and about the warranty requirements. Say we are going to install an elevator in our building project. So the specification would mention what is the capacity of the lift. Maybe it carries 4 people, or it carries 6 people, or 12. And so this will form the part of the specification. Now the quality of workmanship is very important. We might be giving examples of certain products, and then if that product is not available for some reason, we give an option of an equivalent make, or a product which has a specification which is of equivalent make and quality. So that's also important, so that the contractor can go for alternatives in case the one that is suggested in the specification is not available. Warranty requirements are also important, especially for machineries, etc. The specification would show as to what is the warranty that is expected in a particular product, etc., so that the contractor is able to purchase the adequate item. Now we look at the working drawings. What are working drawings? These are dimension drawings for contractor to construct the works. These are very detailed drawing which will give the minutest detail that is required to construct a building part. So this is not just for the contractor. Sometimes it is given to suppliers to fabricate components of the works or to assemble or install components. So it's not just about constructing, but it could be also for assembling or installing components that we use the working drawings. Now we look at 3 other concepts of lead statement, lead, and measurement book. The lead statement is a document used to calculate the cost of the conveyance to bring the materials from the source to work site. Sometimes we will have to source materials from faraway places, and so it's not just the material cost that will have an implication. The cost of transportation also plays an important role in the cost of the product or service. Now we look at the lead. Lead is a horizontal distance from the source to work site to transport a material. So if we have a quarry where the granite is brought from, then it will be important to find out the distance to which the granite is transported. So if it is being sourced from a quarry nearby, the cost would be lesser than what is sourced from a quarry that is farther away. Next, we look at the concept of measurement book. It is a document or record in which quantities of work done are recorded, based on which pay orders are prepared for releasing payment. So this is very commonly used in the government projects, especially in the rural employment guarantee schemes. The measurement book is kept on the site and is usually inspected by the site engineer or the executive engineer. So measurement book is a very important document in which the work done is recorded. on daily basis. We look at two other concepts of location cost index and building cost index. First of all, location cost index. It is a ratio of cost in one location to that in another location. This is important because the cost of construction can vary according to location. What is the rate in one particular city may not be the same in another city. The construction cost in Chennai may not be the same as in Delhi because there are a lot of factors like labor availability, the distance from the source of the product, etc. matters. And so location cost index gives the idea of this difference. The building cost index indicates the increase or decrease of the cost above the cost at a certain base year. So if we have a base year for reference, the cost of constructing in that base year, when we compare that to the present time, then there would be definitely a variation. There would be an increase in the cost. And the cost index mainly depends upon the cost of materials, labor, transport, etc. And so this index gives an idea of how much more is the price as compared to the base year. Work breakdown structures, also referred to as WBS. It is it's a way of organizing a project, and so we break it down into smaller structures for our ease of working, planning, and calculation. Organizing and subdividing the total work scope of a project based on deliverable or work is commonly referred to as work breakdown structure. Now, it's also the organization of project data into manageable sections. It could be something we would be doing on every project without even knowing about it, that we are breaking down a bigger project or a bigger work into smaller parts so that we can quantify them or even plan them accordingly. For example, the phase 1 and phase 2 of building projects. Sometimes it so happens that there is a huge building projects and then there are the client wants to have the base built initially, the shell of the building to be there, and then the client might want to do the interior fit out of one portion of the project and then give it out for occupancy. And while that happens, the interior work of the second phase can begin. So that might be one requirement of phase 1 and phase 2 project of the same project. So that's one example of how we break down the construction activity into an organized manner based on the deliverable. Now, based on the work that is to be done, external works versus building works, that is again an organizing that we do, and this can be classified as work breakdown structure. So the important thing is that this has to be identified prior to taking quantity and estimate, because this is to be considered during the cost estimation stage itself, because this can have an implication on the cost. Because sometimes we might be just doing the phase 1 now and the phase 2 later on, maybe 6 months later on or 1 year later. And so this will have a cost implication on the procurement. It will have a cost implication on the storage of material, and it can also help in optimizing the labor on site, etc. So this has to be kept in mind while we are taking the quantity and the estimate right in the beginning. Now we come to an important concept of schedule of rates, SOR, and analysis of rates. What is the schedule of rate? It is a list of rates of various items of work. It includes rate per unit of various items of work and material. It has the rates of wages of labor, rates of transport. So the government comes up with a detailed document about the schedule of rates for building, and this is very detailed. It is not just about the final product that is there. It has got detailed rates for each item of work that is done. It also has the rate of wages of labor that we use. and just got the rates of transport, etc. All these are included. This is updated on a yearly basis, and it is usually done by the Public Works Department, and it is published and it is made available. So for our purposes, sometimes we might just use the rates directly from the schedule of rates that is provided, and especially for building projects, especially for government building projects, we use a PWD document to take the rates, and then those rates are used to quote for a project. Now, analysis of rates, it is a process of arriving at the rates per unit item of a particular item of work using quantities of materials, cost of laborers, transport, profit, etc. So the rates that we have in the schedule of rates, the whole analysis of it, how do we come to that unit rate? For this, there is a background work that happens, which is the analysis of rates that happen. So this takes into consideration many things like quantity of materials, laborers, transport, profit, etc. It is easy for us to take the rates directly from the schedule of rates that is given in the schedule of rates documents, or else we can actually arrive at our own rates based on the process of analysis of rates. So if we are looking at the analysis of rates, we will look at the material that is being sourced from a particular place. Then we consider the transportation charges for bringing the material from the source, for the production source, to the site. And then we look at after we bring the product to the site, how much is the charge? How much are the charges for labor? What are the wages for the laborers that we have on site, or even the workmen on site? What are the charges for them? And then we have a profit that is also applied to that particular product. So we apply that, and so factoring in all these, we come up with a rate, and this process is called the analysis of rate. Now we look at direct cost and indirect cost. These are two important concepts that estimators have to bear in mind. What is a direct cost? The costs of a construction project, which are directly attributable. What are the contributors to an estimate which can be calculated directly? Those are the direct costs. So this would include costs of materials, labor, equipment, mostly. So we can actually almost come to almost a correct amount while we calculate cost of materials, labor, and equipment. So these are directly contributing to the estimate. Now we have something called the indirect cost. So these costs are not directly accountable to a particular project. These are indirect costs, but these have to be factored in when we quote to a client, or these are also expenses for contractors. So these are also to be considered when we are quoting for a project. What could this be? The general administration cost, the overhead charges, these all fall under the indirect cost. So the cost of running an office, there could be other factors like there would be other charges which are incurred in an office to run a project, for the quality team, etc. So these are also be factored into the indirect costs. We will look at the general and administrative, the GA&A costs, and overhead charges, which come under the indirect costs. The general and administrative costs are the costs for operating a construction site. Now, overhead charges, the ongoing expense of operating a business, excluding the direct costs. What is the expense of operating a business? That is what comes under the overhead charges. So maybe a company has got a certain X amount of overhead charges in a financial year. So these charges are divided among all the projects, and a portion is attributed to them. So that's the way we do so that's one of the ways to do the overhead charges. For example, we have office rent, insurance, tools, legal expenses, etc. These all fall under the overhead charges. Now we look at general conditions of contract, the GCC, and the supplementary general conditions of contract. These are also terms which we will come across when we go through the course. The general conditions of contract. It defines the rights and responsibilities and relations of all parties to the construction contract. So, whoever are the parties in a particular contract, what are their conditions, what are their rights, what are their responsibilities. Now, supplementary general conditions of contract is also referred to as special conditions. It amends or supplements the general conditions due to variations caused in locality and project. So if there are variations caused in locality and project, these fall under the supplementary general conditions of contract. The next term that we will come across is the project duration. It is the amount of clock or calendar time which is required to execute a work, activity or task. So whenever we estimate, we have a project duration in mind. So we say that, okay, this project is to be completed in 6 months, and we estimate accordingly. Now, when the project exceeds that particular project duration, it can have a bearing on the cost. So for this reason, project duration is very important for an estimator, for any project for that matter. Now we look at the general terminologies of crew, crew hour, man hour, or person hour. We look at a crew. It's a group of people or workers who execute a construction activity. The crew may also include a construction equipment required to execute the work. Suppose we are having to build a wall, a brick wall maybe. So there would be a mason, there would be a supervisor, there would be laborers, someone to mix the concrete. So there is a crew, a group of people that are required to build a project, a particular activity. So we evaluate that particular activity based on the group of people who are working on it. So the construction crew consists of supervisory staff, could be skilled and non-skilled workmen, and this is at the level of site. On a site, we have a crew consisting of skilled and non-skilled workmen. If it's a bigger project, say it's a larger scale project, then it is headed by a project manager, assisted by construction managers and planning engineers at office levels. And at the site level, we would have a project engineer who would be reporting to a construction manager. And the project engineer is assisted for the site execution by a foreman or a charge hand. So that's the concept of crew. We have examples of foreman, mason, laborers, etc. Now, when we have the concept of crew, let's check out what a crew hour is. A crew hour is the effort of one crew for 1 hour of time. So that will be the group's effort, the output of the productivity of that particular crew for 1 hour of time. Now, man hour or person hour, that is at a more individual level, it is the amount of work performed by the average worker in 1 hour. Again, this is to calculate the productivity, to find out the productivity of labor, that we use these concepts. Next, we move on to the concepts of general contractor and quantity surveyor. Who is a general contractor? The general contractor is responsible for the day-to-day oversight of a construction site, management of vendors and trades, and communication of information to involved parties throughout the course of a building project. The general contractor is a very important person in a construction project. The person would be available at the site, and the person would be, if the general contractor is a civil contractor, the person would be managing the vendors, the subcontractors, other trades like plumbing, electrical, HVAC, etc. The coordination would happen at that level by the leadership of the general contractor. Then the general contractor also communicates and interacts with the architect, the project management team, and the client. The site meetings are held on the site, and this is arranged by the general contractor. Now we look at who a quantity surveyor is. A quantity surveyor is a professional working within the construction industry and concerned with building cost. So, a quantity surveyor, written as QS, employs standard methods of measurement to develop a BOQ, or the bill of quantities. So, estimation profession has a quantity surveyor who has got certain methods of measurement to develop bill of quantities. And so the estimation of a project is the responsibility